Hello and welcome to another episode of Bangladesh Today. The bilateral trade relationship between India and Bangladesh is currently of special interest to both countries. In Bangladesh, there are concerns in some quarters about the constant and increasing bilateral trade deficit with India and from the large volumes of informal imports from India across the land border, which bypass Bangladeshi import duties. India sees closer economic integration with Bangladesh as part of its Look East policy and also as means of reducing the economic and political isolation of the 7 eastern and northeastern states from the rest of the country. Both India and Bangladesh have long shared common objectives for closer economic integration within the South Asian region. The visit of the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to India in 2010 and the reciprocal visit of Dr. Manmohan Singh to Dhaka in 2011 gave the much-needed fillip to economic ties between the two nations. Since 1996-97, Indian exports to Bangladesh have been growing at 9.1% annually. But India's imports from Bangladesh over the same period have grown on an average at only 3% annually, compared to an average growth of its total imports of 9.2%. Consequently, Bangladesh's bilateral trade deficit with India has been increasing rapidly, on an average at about 9.5% annually. However, the bilateral trade deficit narrowed for the first time in the fiscal year 2005-06 when Bangladesh's exports rose to $242 million from $144 million in the previous year, while India's exports fell to $1.8 billion from $2 billion.
I think the present business relationship between Bangladesh and India is growing quite significantly for three reasons. In recent times, India and Bangladesh have been opening up their economies, and number two is that the political environment between the two countries has also improved quite significantly, and the third, that there is a growing recognition in Bangladesh that India will be a major power in the 21st century and Bangladesh should take advantage of that. Bangladesh's import from India was about $830 million in the year 2000, and in 2010-11 it was about $4,570 million. Our exports to India also increased from about $65 million to about $510 million in these 10 years. So both the export and import of Bangladesh have been increasing, but this also tells us that the bilateral trade deficit is quite significant, about $4 billion, $4,000 million, and it is difficult. It will be difficult for Bangladesh to reduce this deficit significantly if we can't expand our exports at a very fast pace. So for Bangladesh, the trick of the trade will be, in fact, to expand our export to India, to diversify our export, and I think there is an opportunity to do that because India has also provided in recent times duty-free access for all Bangladeshi products to India, and we have been able to take advantage of the accelerated imports that we see in India. So I think it will be important for Bangladesh.
At the turn of the decade in the 21st century, the bilateral trade gap of Bangladesh with India was $4.08 billion, with Indian exports amounting for $4.5 billion. During this period, Bangladesh imported goods worth $4.59 billion, while it exported only $512 million worth of goods to India. Financial analysts said that despite Bangladesh's gradual increase of export to India, trade deficit between the two countries doubled in just 5 years, reflecting a galloping economic imbalance. During her visit to New Delhi in 2010, Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her Indian counterpart Dr. Manmohan Singh had agreed to set up an inland container terminal costing some $36 million with Indian assistance at Ashuganj. Under the Water Transit Protocol between the two South Asian nations, over 1 million tons of inter-country cargo and about 10,000 tons of transit cargo are shipped every year. The process of selection of a consultant for preparation of a detailed project report for construction of an inland container terminal at Ashuganj is still underway. Measures such as elimination of tariffs and non-tariffs restriction at the unilateral, bilateral and regional levels have made India the largest trading partner of Bangladesh in South Asia.
There has been some development in recent times, particularly after our Prime Minister visited Delhi in January 2010, and not to mention also the return visit by India's Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to Dhaka last year. And this relates to minimizing the number of items from the negative list. So there has been some improvement in the balance on trade, but still we have long way to go. And but as I said, maybe over the years, if the current trend continues, then I believe we will see some positive development. The only drawback we still have is although the agreements have helped to boost Bangladesh's trade relatively to that of India's, but the non-traditional barriers are still there. And unless and until the non-traditional barriers are tackled in big way, I don't think the development, the kind of development that we are looking for will happen. But as I said, there has been some improvement in the economic area, particularly on trade, not to mention on some of the items that we sell between Bangladesh and India.
Ever since Bangladesh's independence, there's been a substantial informal unrecorded trade across the India-Bangladesh land borders. Much of this trade is quasi-legal and is best characterized as informal rather than illegal because there is a wide participation by local people in the border areas, and the trade generally bypasses customs posts. Hence, to give some kind of an order to this unaccounted trade, a number of border harts or border markets are going to be set up. The border harts quite naturally will be set up along the boundaries. These are expected to witness bilateral trade worth $20 million every year, once all of them become operational. The first such border hart was set up at Kalaichar in West Garo Hills district of Meghalaya last year. Dhaka and New Delhi are keen to set up 8 more border markets along the India-Bangladesh border in the northeastern states. These markets are to be set up within 5 kilometers of either side of the international border. The border harts would be allowed to sell local agricultural and horticultural products, small agriculture and household goods, spices, minor forest products, fresh and dry fish, dairy and poultry products, cottage industry items, wood furniture, handloom and handicraft items, garments, melamine products, processed food items, fruit juice, toiletries, cosmetics, plastic products, aluminium products and cooked items. No local tax would be imposed on the trading, and both Indian as well as Bangladeshi currencies will be accepted.
Of course, because of the fact that Bangladesh is surrounded by India from all 3 sides, it is very pertinent that there will be border trade between the 2 countries. And it is pertinent to have border trade officially formalized in order to conduct the border trade, and that is why we have this border hut, which is, in other words, it could be called in as a border exchange. Currently, with what we have on the papers right now is per person can do a transaction of up to $50 per day, which is now being enhanced to $100 per day. Even at $50 per day, this border trades were targeted to bring in a revenue of $20 million. So if you can imagine, if it's only one border hut that can actually, or the two border hut that has been approved so far, if the government is targeting $20 million per annum in revenue out of these two huts, imagine what other possibilities would open up.
Garments, which made up 18 billion US dollars of Bangladesh's record 23 billion US dollars exports in the previous financial year, offer a crucial lifeline to the low-lying Delta nation. In September last year, the Indian government extended duty-free access for 46 Bangladeshi textile goods to India, which resulted in 80 to 90% increase in import of Bangladeshi garment products.
Today, we have been exporting $19 billion from the RMG, which is about consists of 80% of our total export earning. At the same time, 80%, 3.5 million people are directly working in this sector. 80% of them are the women.
The recent fire at a garment factory, which left over 100 dead, has dented the most prosperous industry of the country. Working conditions at Bangladeshi factories are notoriously poor, with little enforcement of safety laws, and overcrowding and locked fire doors are common.
The fire broke out in this garment factory, and the moment we have received the information, the fire brigade teams, the fire units rushed to the spot along with the other law enforcement agencies came here, and we could control the fire as soon as possible. But yet the death toll is significant, I must say. We are now recovering the dead bodies and trying to hand them over to their respective victim families following the due procedure.
Bangladesh has around 4,500 garment factories and is the world's biggest exporter of clothing after China, with garments making up 80% of its 24 billion US dollars annual exports. More than 300 factories near the capital shut down for almost a week earlier this year as workers demanded higher wages and better working conditions.
I think what is important is both the countries should realize that not to put too much eggs on the trade and commerce, but to go into production in partnership. The greater the production in partnership, joint production in Bangladesh and Indian capital together, that way I believe there's a tremendous potential for these two countries to develop their economic relationship, and also not to mention getting rid of the imbalance that we have with India. Unless that kind of joint partnership is developed, and we can start thinking of that by keeping Northeast in mind, because if Northeast needs to be developed, I believe a joint partnership in production between India and Bangladesh, where industries or manufacturing units built in Bangladesh, which the products can go to Northeast or to different countries of the world. In that way, I believe Bangladesh can minimize the kind of trade imbalance that it has now with India.
Trade relations between India and Bangladesh have moved steadily along and would obtain greater and more secure economic benefits by giving priority to personal economic stability rather than by pursuing free trade agreements. This does not mean that other cooperative endeavors should be neglected. Facilitating bilateral trade and reducing its cost would help reduce black economic activities in both countries associated with smuggling routes and improve fiscal resources, especially in Bangladesh. That's all we have for you in this episode of Bangladesh Today. Thank you for watching.